Hey, I'm Danny Whitman, and this is my testimony. So, growing up as a kid, I had a pretty good, normal lifestyle. Mom and dad were there. We went to amusement parks, had good times, played family games, no significant dysfunction. I know all families have some sort of thing, but it wasn't too bad. But things started changing right around when I turned the age of 15. My dad worked for the post office, and he accidentally fell loading his truck and hurt his back so bad to where he couldn't work. And at first, it was just kind of like a little bit of disability, and then it turned into he couldn't work at all. And then things just started kind of spiraling downhill from there. We became homeless. And at first, it wasn't too bad. We moved in with our uncle, with my uncle. And, at 15, it's kind of wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't too bad for me because I'm like, oh, cool, we're at our uncle's and stuff. But, as the days went by, I started realizing I'm not able to have my own space or things like that. And, it kind of sucked a little bit. We were living in a small basement, all five of us, me, my mom, my dad, my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, and then my newborn baby sister. And, it started getting worse. At that time, my cousin had invited me to come to church youth group. Now, prior to this, I had we never went to church growing up. I mean, my grandmother brought me to a church when I was younger. Didn't really mean much to me. We would go Easter services, Christmas services. But it's not that I didn't believe in God. I mean, I knew who God was. I knew who Jesus was. We had the picture of, Jesus with the blue eyes, blonde hair on the wall and a cross. Just, it's in a normal American household, right? But didn't have that relationship with Christ like I do now. So we go to this youth group. It was pretty cool. It was fun. The youth pastor there at the time, he did what he was supposed to do. He introduced himself. He showed me that he cared and said, hey, if you ever need a ride to youth group next week or whenever, give me a call and I'll pick you up. And he gave me his phone number. I never went back, not because I didn't like the church. It just wasn't a part of my lifestyle. It wasn't a priority. I didn't go because it was a negative. I just wasn't my lifestyle. And so I was 15 then. For the next 4 years, things got bad. The homelessness became more extreme to the point where my mom, dad, and my baby sister had to go to a shelter. I moved in with I don't want to really say they were a family friend, but they were a nice family who took me in, considering their circumstances. And then my sister, my other sister, went to go live with some other people. And that's when things got real for me. I started feeling somewhat anxiety, a little bit of depression, felt abandoned. Now, mind you, as I go further on into my testimony, I will tell you now as an adult, I don't really have a lot of negative feelings towards my parents now because as an adult, I understand now. But when I was younger, I had hatred towards my dad, my mom, because I felt like, man, I'm going to get emotional on this one, dude. I had hatred because I'm like, Dad, why couldn't you hold us together? You know what I mean? And, when I would argue with my parents about things, they would argue back. And it just felt like, what, you don't want me? And, for 4 years, it was tough. And then finally, my parents kind of got back on their feet with government housing. They found a small house. It was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And I moved back in. But I was only in there for a short time, maybe a year or so. And as I understand it, because I was 18 and I had an income, I think I worked at McDonald's at the time, my income would disqualify them for their government assistance. So my dad had to have a conversation. You can't live here. And that devastated me because, you know, as a kid, all I wanted was to get back with the family, and to have to leave because of that, it just didn't make sense to me. And I resisted. And my dad and we fought about it physically. And, you know, as the arguments went on day by day about this and about that, the relationship was it was already broken because of the separation, in my opinion. And things just got really bad. And I started feeling suicidal. I had no way out. College was an option for me. I think I graduated high school with like a D average just because I was homeless my senior year. And, you know, I didn't feel like I had anything going for me. I didn't even have an out. So for me, my out was suicide. So the moment I wanted to make that decision was actually December 14th, 2023. And
2003.
oh yeah, sorry, 2003, a long time ago, 2003. A couple days before, and I'm not afraid to show this, but this little mark right here, I tried to commit suicide by cutting my wrists. I didn't go deep enough, I chickened out. So my other method would be to jump out in front of a car. And where I was at the time, there was a road that I lived on, and it was dark. There's no street lights. It was windy, and it was a perfect time to just jump out because no one would see me ahead of time. And I think I was walking that road for a few hours, and not a single car was coming by. And I'm mad. I'm crying. I'm angry. I'm just walking back and forth, waiting for something to happen. And, back then I had a little prepaid cell phone you got from 7-Eleven. You had to buy minutes. And I had like a little black phone book with phone numbers from the past. I had friends from the previous place I lived with. And I'm trying to call everybody. I'm calling my aunts and uncles in California. I'm calling my grandmother in Pennsylvania, my other grandmother in Maryland. And no one's answering the phone. And, I think I've heard when people want to commit suicide, they try to get something out there. They write a letter or tell somebody or whatever. And I just wanted to tell somebody what I was about to do. And I think deep down inside I wanted somebody to talk me out of it. But I didn't want them to talk me out of it because I had nothing to live for at the time. And anyway, so I finally get to the end of the phone book, alphabetical. It was an XYZ, and the only person I had in XYZ was youth pastor Sean from that church that I went to 4 or 5 years prior to this moment. And I think just stereotypically in my head, I thought, oh, hey, this guy's a church guy. He could probably help me. And I called, and I hadn't spoken to him again ever since that one night at youth group where he was like, hey, if you ever need a ride, give me a call. And remember, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, from 2023. And 2003, sorry. So I called, and he picked up, and I said, hi, is this Sean? He goes, yeah, is this Danny? And I said, yeah, how do you know? And he goes, I'm on my knees right now praying for you because I remember who you are, and I asked God for you to give me a call sometime. And I just dropped to my knees, and I wept, and I wept, and I cried, and I told him what I was doing, and he said, hey, I want you to go home. I said, I don't have a place to go. And I explained to him what was going to happen, and he said, all right, just stay where you're at, let me know, and I'll come pick you up. And he did, and brought me back to his house, and that was my introduction to who Jesus was. I wouldn't say that moment I gave my life to Christ because I still didn't know what that meant, but I found my out other than suicide.
So it was a nice God moment from, being at your worst and having nobody else to call out to, and one of the last numbers in the book, in your phone book, was Y for youth pastor.
Yeah, I didn't even have his last name. It was just under. I just alphabetized him under Y for youth pastor.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know where to put him.
And he knew your name because God put it on his heart.
Yeah, he remember. Yeah, he said, and I even asked him years later. I was like, "Hey, can you tell me your side of give me your side of the story?" Because I remember what you said, and he said, "Yeah, he was just going through he woke up one night and just felt led to pray." I don't remember exactly what time, but it was midnight. It had to have been midnight, 1:00,
Yeah.
and he said, "Yeah, he was just praying, and he was looking out his window, and he was just." He was just praying, looking out his window, and he's like, a memory of me went by, and he said, "Lord, let me get in touch with this guy one day. Let me see him, have him give me a call." And like he said, immediately after he got the phone call
Nice.
and picked it up.
Yeah, that's what I like to call like the hounds of heaven chasing you down, so to speak.
Yeah,
His love in our darkest times shines the brightest. That's for sure.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, thanks, Danny, for giving that testimony. Appreciate it, brother.
I will say this: if you're watching this and you feel like there's no other alternative other than suicide because your life is crap, even if you don't believe in God, God believes in you, and He will grab you, even if you don't want Him to. You just need to wait. Don't let suicide be your option.
Yeah.
Just give it some time. I
Yeah.
promise you, it gets better. In Christ, it will get better.
Yep.
Okay? Your life you're not going to make lots of money or whatever, this or that, prosperity. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying mentally, emotionally, spiritually, your life will get better if you let God in. I promise you this.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is you're never too far away from Him, and logically is like, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't believe in Him, what's the worst? Like, you reach out and he pulls you close, and yeah, you're never too far deep for Him to find
Yeah.
you. Amen, man. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.